All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Hannah Jennings, a community organizer at Tech in Motion, and I'm excited to welcome you here all for the first webinar of the year. As we get started, feel free to take a moment to introduce yourselves in the chat. Maybe let us know where you're tuning in from, your current role, or if you have a question for our panel, please post that in the Q&A section anytime throughout the event, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as possible during the live session. While everyone continues to join, we're going to share a quick survey on your screen. We invite you to take a moment to share any topics or trends you hope to discuss this year so we can continue bringing programming that's tailored to what matters most to you. So you should see a pop-up. Feel free to open that up and give us your feedback. For those of you who have joined Tech in Motion before, you know we've been bringing together the tech community since 2011 when Motion Recruitment launched this series. It's always been about learning from industry leaders, building real connections, and staying ahead of what's next in technology. Today, as part of Kelly's technology division, Motion supports organizations and technologists as they tackle complex technology challenges, whether that's building a specialized team, modernizing systems, scaling infrastructure, or advancing cloud, data, and AI initiatives. The focus is on helping our customers move faster with confidence. What that means is really simple. If you're hiring critical technical talent, transforming how work gets done, or figuring out how to deploy AI responsibly, these are challenges we solve every day alongside teams just like yours. You'll hear some perspectives directly from our telecom and consulting leaders here today. Now, with all of that said, that brings us to our conversation for today. In this session, we'll tackle a topic that's top of mind for many tech leaders, and that is how Agentic AI is reshaping technology in 2026. We'll explore what sets Agentic AI apart from traditional automation, where organizations are realistically starting, and the core implications for technologists as they move from experimentation to real-world production impact. A quick housekeeping note, the session is being recorded, so if you have to hop off early, no worries. We will make sure you get a full recording to your inbox after today's event. Now, without further ado, I am pleased to welcome back our host, David Yakobovitch. David leads DataPower Ventures as a general partner, where he invests in transformative AI infrastructure and agentic companies across early stage funds and growth SPVs. David is also the founder of Tech Power Network, a community of peer collaboration events in New York City and Silicon Valley, where innovation meets opportunity for founders, executives, developers, and investors. So David, we are excited to have you back for another event. I will let you take it away from here.
Hannah, thanks so much for having me, and great to see everyone. It's always good to be here with the Tech Motion community. Wow, what a year this is already shaping up to be here in the start of 2026. As Hannah mentioned, everything anyone is talking about is agents. And we're going to have a very exciting, esteemed panel today with three experts in the space talking about use cases and what they're seeing in Agentic AI for implementation and deployment this year. We're going to bring up to the stage three experts, and then I'll get us started with some background. Today, we'll be having with you Barry Reimer, who's VP of Sales and Solutions for AI and Advanced Digital Technologies at Motion Telco, a Kelly company. We'll also have Shuki Licht, Vice President, Head of AI Technology and Innovation at HealthEquity. And third, Wade Erickson, the Leadership and Pre-Sales Engineer at Motion Consulting Group, a Kelly company. And our three experts come with such a vast variety of experience in implementation and the entire AI industry, which has changed so much in the last 12 months. To set the stage here for today's discussion, just in the last 2 weeks, we've seen a tremendous amount of updates in agentics. Three very viral moments, you could say. One includes formerly Claudebot, which is now called Moltbot. It's really been taking the industry by storm, where anyone like you or I could use a Mac Mini and have your own agent to help you personally outsource your tasks. It's quite incredible. They're one of the fastest projects on GitHub to ever grow in 72 hours, got over 60,000 stars. Quite incredible to see this practical implementation. And I'm sure we'll get into a few of these topics. Second, Anthropic recently announced a couple weeks ago Claude Cowork, which is their solution for non-engineers to bring agentics into their workflow. So you don't have to use Claude Code if you're someone who's not an engineer. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about this today. And third, we're even seeing in the voice AI space where tools like 11 Labs are now making audible voices indistinguishable from humans, being used for everything from audiobooks to YouTube videos. Quite incredible. But with that said, and all this as context, I'd like to tee up our first question for our panelists. This is actually to everyone, but we're seeing again this rise of agentic AI. I just gave a few examples for consumer and enterprise. To each and every one of you, if you can share, how do you see this autonomy of agentics different from the former automation and AI tools of the previous 3 to 5 years? Maybe we can start off here with Barry.
Yeah, thank you, David. So for me, I think looking back over over the evolution of technology from automation to kind of what I term with a lot of our legacy technology clients that we're moving to, more advanced systems, intelligent automation, because that's really, in my mind, what this is that we're talking about. It's and when you look at legacy process or legacy systems and how agents and agentic AI can benefit, it is working with or alongside those legacy systems and processes to augment intelligently. And that's really where the key driver is that intelligent piece. Because a lot of times with, I'll pick on legacy systems for a second. They are usually highly stable. They're very costly also. But they're also fraught with a lot of old data, suboptimal scaling, downtime, lack of deployment across enterprise consistently. And all of these things can be incorporated, all these challenges can be incorporated into an agentic workflow. The thing that the agentic workflow really excels with is dealing with those unanticipated, unexpected conditions. So all that bad data, downtime, suboptimal processes, the ability to identify those dynamic conditions and address them in real time as opposed to in days or weeks or being missed entirely. And I think the importance here is that human in the loop notion with agents. So you bring that to the attention of the people involved in that process quicker so that they can make decisions faster. It allows the gathering of information to go from a fishing expedition to real just data fetching in real time, and to further scale as needed to subtasks. So new problem is encountered, agent has the ability to assign subtasks either to a subservient agent or a neighboring agent on the fly, which is something that automation could never do, at least not in a classic sense.
Yeah, that's great. And maybe Wade, if you could also dig a little deeper into here, do you find any interesting places where organizations could start with this type of agentic autonomy in 2026?
Yeah, I think a lot of our automation that we've seen in the past still depended heavily on our engineering community to the coders, those kind of things. And there was a fear. I mean, we've been, 30 years now into the internet. how many people still haven't wrote a web page? We still lean on folks. And I find that one thing different with this new agentic AI paradigm is, I work on work with a platform. I'm a certified developer on that. And I would say 90% of my people in my community are not from the development community. They are people that have a lot of work on their plate and they don't have enough time. And so by writing, thinking that now we have this concept of agent first, we've had mobile first, cloud first, web first. Now this agent first concept is coming out. And that's really when you start to build these agents, your mindset shifts. So when I'm given a task, if I know it's going to take me 3 to 5 days to do something, some research, write a report, or I could write an agent in an hour and a half that does that, and I'm actually got 80% of it done within 4 hours. That's the kind of mindset that is our future. And so all I tell people is, you know what? If you've never been a programmer in the past, we all do complex tasks, and you can just start. These tools are, if you choose the right tools, you can self-study and be writing level 1, level 2 agents within days that will solve weeks of work. And yes, largely that's text creation, but the automation that Barry talked about, we're still going to lean on our developers for that. If we have an agent that, detects an incident, checks logs, runs diagnostics, restarts services, updates tickets, posts a summary to Slack, all in the agent, that's not a regular department worker. But absolutely, if you need something that writes courseware based on Google searches, those kind of agents are readily available for people to create, and they just need a good platform. And there's a handful out there that, just like you said in the opening, they're being built for the non-technical person, and I think they're just phenomenally powerful.
Yeah, it's incredible to really see the shift in design and development across the ecosystem. And I think something that you've stressed on, Wade, as well as what Barry indicated, is that there are legacy systems, and we have to find the right workflows with developers to integrate the new agentic AI while maintaining workflow continuity for these legacy systems. Shuki, perhaps would you have any context with your projects? How are we balancing both legacy and these new systems?
So thank you for the question. What we are seeing and what we are working here at HealthEquity is mostly how to adapt and integrate pieces of AI into the legacy system and into existing flow, because as of today, also our members and clients and everyone is still regular to work in a specific environment, and you need to do and integrate it. And there's different patterns that we found that working very well. The first one is, how you create a facade layers that encapsulate the API and encapsulate the AI through an API that create a really single responsibility of principles. So the AI are responsible for one things that is doing very, very well. The second one is all the event-driven integration. We develop here, for example, a solution that try to solve the claim processing. Today, claim processing, if you try that, it can take you 20 minutes. It will take you another several days till you get a resolution, and then it's always going to be denied. We came with an AI solution that just solved this solution in 1 minute. So less than a minute, you take a pictures of your order receipt, and less than a minute, AI give you everything is cool, your money on the way from reimbursement. And to achieve that, you need one to integrate, and we integrated with events. And the idea about events is that if AI have enough confidence that it can solve this kind of claim, for example, a simple receipt, things that are more things that he saw before in patterns and have an high confidence, then AI is taking the work and just drop back to the service bus the information. If the AI can't solve this problem, a human can go to the service bus and just start to pick up that. And then you have a beautiful integration without dependent between human and AI. And you start to see how the AI is starting to learn more and more often about how the human is doing better. And you start to take more and more tasks that you have more confidence. And then you start to scale the system with like zero engineering effort from our perspective and also from for member experience, the member experience is still, it doesn't care if it's a human or AI. Another place that we start to see a very solid trend about how things are going to work is what we call digital twins. How you start to have AI that's running in parallel to you. We see that in autonomous cars that we started 2 years ago with, AI driven that just educate you about issues that you can find, or just raise a flag if something wrong in your how you drive, etc. And now we see it's moving more and more to taking ownership. It's the same concept. So, moving side by side with the twins that just help you with that. And as you're going and moving from, read only to a recommendation system to something that you limited action till you go to full automation.
Now, looking at these projects, Shuki, I'm sure they're not all successful. Historically, we look in the last few years, and there's classic studies from McKinsey and others that say, 20% or so of AI projects make it to production. This might be a similar metric or so. Why are you seeing some or many AI agent projects not making it into production?
Yeah, it's a great question, and mostly the main reason is the ones that define this agent are set too much high expectation to what the agent can really achieve. And when I say what they can really achieve is about the quality. And quality can be the accuracy, or in our case, the confidence. One of the challenges that we have with LLM that it's still very hard to define if what you are getting from that is true or false. So all the precise, meaning if it's a true positive or false positive, it's very, very hard. And you need to invest a lot of pre-processing and post-processing to make sure that all the information that's getting in and out are going through some more deterministic way. And by doing that, then you can get into high quality. But without putting these guardrails, you can be in a lot of troubles. And we see a lot of projects that just go into production or going to high scale, and then you start to find that the numbers are below the 90% or 95%, you go to 80 and the 70%. And it's okay. And then you need to be more precise about, you say, you know what? If I don't have this 99% of confidence, and I'm not having a guardrails that really validate results, just drop it to human. Don't sacrifice any production environment. And by doing that, then you can start to get better. Another place that I think that and I see a lot of projects like that are not getting to the finish line is the thinking of that, hey, let's just drop an agent without putting any data scientist information or validation or traceability about the quality. We are putting a lot of effort about all the operations around this AI. For example, we have a massive data scientist effort that just looking for drift, okay? And this is something that's run every day, because every day the LLM can come with his own interpretations, and you want every time to get the same results, because if you start to see results are backing to other places, then you will get a problem very, very soon. So everything about observability, especially about the drift, everything about evaluation, how you evaluate the quality, how you define that. And as I mentioned, how you integrate more deterministic engineering principles like logging and very solid and contracts with the APIs, this can solve all this problem. But on the other side, you sacrifice how much you can really go to automate.
Now, Wade, for yourself, I know you work a lot in pre-sales, and this is often the most infancy of projects, right? From the pure start, and I'm sure not all of them also make it to production. You probably have a lot of lessons learned on what's working with these AI agent projects. Love to hear some of your insights as well.
Yeah, I think, along with was stated earlier, we have these top-down projects that are the bigger ones that you're talking about that are failing, that are noticed, they're tracked, they have a good amount of money spent from the top, so there's a little more pain associated with that. And then we have some, the ground up, the ones that are developed at the department level for task execution. And, if we look at the early days of any of our technologies, I remember when the internet was first being introduced to business, right? 20, 30 years ago. And there was just a handful of people that started to pick up HTML and active server pages and .NET and those kind of things to build department level tools. And it wasn't until leadership started to see the value of these, some called them rogue IT shops. Others, it was just organic use of tools that it started to have this benefit. And we have this concept of a J curve, if you haven't heard of that, where you spend a lot of money up front to implement things and you're going to have failures. Okay. But that doesn't mean you're not progressing. And so there is a lot of expense early on in all our technical revolutions, everything going back to the automobile. There was a lot of expensive automobiles created before Ford came up with his. Same thing, PCs. I remember when a PC cost 20% of somebody's salary. So we had to share PCs. I mean, would you go to your boss and say, $20,000, I need a gadget for my desk, it costs $20,000. But that's really what it cost back in the day. And we had to share computers. Now they're 1% of a salary. So we just have to be patient with this stuff, and keep realizing that this is a huge impact to our future. In 5 years from now, we will be talking about a whole different aspect of AI, and people will take agentic AI as the early days, and we will have automations that are working, are doing phenomenal things for our society. And so I think we just have to work through them, be patient with them, have good frameworks at the top for these expensive ones. Set up the value, look at feasibility, look at risk, governance issues, change readiness. A lot of this is about people changing to the new mindset. It's not about the technology. We've had RPA available for 15 years. It was supposed to put 100 million people out of work. Didn't happen. Why? Because the adoption of RPA has been very slow. And not that the technology couldn't do it. It was the absorption into our business models.
Well, today we are sharing, of course, very expensive tools. It's not unheard of to see $20,000 Blackwells being shared on these GPUs and neo clouds. But expenses set aside, I think Wade, you and Barry and Shuki have brought up great points on governance. And that's a core topic that we see, Dario from Anthropic talk about. He just came out with a couple days ago, for those who haven't seen, his latest blog post, The Adolescence of Technology, which is a follow-on from his post, The Machines of Loving Grace. This is a multi-thousand-word piece from Dario, CEO of Anthropic. Encourage everyone to check it out. He speaks a lot of governance. And for our experts here today, Barry, we'll go in with you first. But thinking about human in the loop, how can we as humans have oversight, accountability, and ethical deployment to implement with agentic AI today?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And to me, this is kind of a logical follow-on for sure from the last question and the question before it. I think I look at, in a very overly simplified way, different types of AI and agentic AI projects. You do have the ones that are very development centric and top down at times, where you're starting with the technology and then building and trying to see if it works for the business, and or looking at the business and going, well, this looks like a problem. Let's build something and then let's give it to the business. And I think especially with this technology that we're talking about, agentic AI, the more that you can start with the business or work with the business and have synergy between technology and operations, it does increase your success rate. And it does certainly help with the governance piece, the ability to have human in the loop. And I think there's a couple of important points, and then I'm going to give a very specific example for one of the projects that we've put together in the last 12 months. With human in the loop, I think it's important that you involve the people doing the work, the subject matter experts, the business early on, so that they can help you define the workflow, help you define how the data is used, help you define where the pain points are, but also, almost more importantly, define where the touch points are. Define where there needs to be human involvement. Where are the risks? Where does the oversight need to be? What needs to be reported on and called out and monitored, and how? And being the experts in that business operation, they are much more equipped to be able to give you that information than you trying to figure it out on your own as an engineer or as an architect. And that's hard. It is hard for business and technology people to speak the same language a lot of times. And I think that is one of the reasons why some of these projects do fail. But to Wade's point, you have to find a starting point often. And, the project that I have an illustration for this on was about finding a starting point. It was working with one of our major telecom clients. And this was a multi-workflow problem that they had with legacy data and a multitude of old systems that had existed and been known and talked about and needed to solve systemically for 10, almost 15 years. And they talked a lot about it, but they made a lot of attempts to solve it, but they hadn't done it together with business and technology. What we did was find a starting point, find part of one of the workflows and a business sponsor that was interested in doing a proof of concept. We worked directly with his team of subject matter experts. We defined their workflow, helped them document their process, which hadn't been well documented, had to learn their nomenclature, how they use the data, how they fetch the data, where it came from, all the branches of the decision tree. We mapped all of that out and built the system alongside them. And in doing so, we were much more easily able to define the logical touch points for human interaction, and subsequently the feedback loops to allow the system to learn from that human interaction. They themselves got to define what the feedback would be and how the system might need to adapt as we iterated and had new releases in this project. And so by involving them early, we got to help define where the touch points were, where the oversight needed to be, what risks needed to be called out, and where humans actually really needed to take action regardless of what the system learned.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lesson learned for sure is to clearly define your business requirements from a product perspective and ensure that we're having these checklists and scorecards, knowing, where should the human in the loop be, where can the AI run autonomously. So we're definitely seeing a variation among different clients and industries. And part of that could be the ethical deployment. Shuki, curious to get also your view on this question.
Yeah, so as I shared, we are deploy human in the loop as part of our AI processing. That means that we define what are the threshold of confidence, accuracy, and other parameters that we need to move to humans to take a look at that. And this is in a full automation, meaning that we are what we call defer. Something happens in the AI can't take the action based on confidence level, move it to a human, and then human just take it into a queue and start to work on that. And then when the human take the action and just move it in and solve the problem, the information, all the learning from the human is now going back to what we call a knowledge database. A knowledge database, if you're not familiar, all this kind of vector database, similarity. This is still a great tool because this can reduce a cost, and second one, this can start to scale you to millions of knowledge that you can go and bypass. So the next time that AI need to take a decision, you can first go to the vector database and see if this information already exists in inequality of a human, and if not, it's just going through the AI and let the AI again. And then you start to have a system that are on day-to-day just growing and growing and growing. And this is outstanding. And I recommend for you not just to think how to use AI to solve a problem right now and every time believe that AI will solve it, always thinking how this AI using human in the loop is working together and create this value that just increase over time. With all the respect that I mentioned, you still need the guardrails, etc., just to make sure that nothing is going wrong. But this is the direction that I recommend to everyone.
I think it's a very fair point and good direction, because human in the loop truly is that conversation point we're seeing with companies and with policies and with governments. Just in the most recent article, again, that Dario came out with, and I'll share it in the chat for the entire audience. This is his link to the Adolescence of Technology, which just came out a couple of days ago. In it, I think one of the most contrasting views that Dario shared compared to the Machines of Love and Grace last year is, previously, I will quote approximately, that he had predicted in the next 1 to 2 years, in 2025, that we could see 50% automation in some entry-level, white-collar, blue-collar type fields. And his latest article cannot be more polar opposite. Now he says within the next 1 to 5 years, he's taken a step back. It's quite interesting to see how some of the AI has been very successful for use cases like productivity and writing emails and reviewing legal briefs, but maybe some of our expectations were not matched correctly for the implementation and the automation of these agentic AI workflows. So my question on this human in the loop part will go next to Wade. How do we start thinking about hiring, promotions, team structure, what these changes look like as we're accommodating these new AI augmented capabilities?
I think it'll start showing up in our resumes for folks, CVs, certifications are getting better. And the reality will be, how have you effectively been using agents in your past? And that's, again, more of the ground floor, organic types of agents that are being built, where I look at my day-to-day efforts. And this is obviously, you could think of, if I'm a manager and I came to my manager and I said, hey, I was thinking about doing this without AI and it's going to take me a week and a half, or I could write an agent and it'll help me complete it today. What's his response going to be? Well, absolutely, I want you to do it today. I don't know how and why you're going to get to that point, but we need the output. And so it's really the output that is going to change the worker and their ability to take on these technologies. And I don't see a lot of companies demanding that of their staff. What certifications are you getting? I remember when early on when Microsoft Word was being adopted. I mean, I'm aging myself here, but these change management challenges that we're having with agentic AI are not new. Whenever new technology enters the workforce, we have to rethink how we do work. People had to become good typists when word processors came in. Prior to that, you had typing pools, right? Same thing with RPA. RPA was an incredible tool 15 years ago. And when we were implementing, we were saving millions of dollars, but it was very focused, maybe in finance, because they were early adopters of this technology, but it didn't move into manufacturing. It didn't move into human HR and those kind of things. So I think the reality is that, just like you said, we have to be patient with this process. Changing the human is the slow part. You have all these elite technologists that run these companies. The speed of your mind is not the speed of change in society. And so they accelerate this because the technology is there, but it takes a long time to have the humans catch up to that. And so, today we talk about, I remember when mobile apps were coming out and it was mobile first, not versus web first. And people were struggling with the screen size. Well, we had to rethink the design. We had to rethink the UI on how we present information to people. Okay. Same thing now with agentic AI. We have to rethink tasking our workforce. And those that are going to take this on themselves early on, again, at ground level, ground up, department level kind of stuff, are going to be the ones that succeed and become superhuman in their teams. Not everybody has to build agents, and that's one thing we have to remember. If we have a team of 10 people, not all 10 have to build agents. 2 do, because the other 10 are all going to use it. So we just really need to build that and find those folks that really fit the team, because not everybody's going to learn how to build agents. It's just not realistic. So.
And Wade, you bring up some great points. And as we continue through our panel here on how agentic AI is reshaping tech, we do have a lot of audience pre-submitted questions. And this is going to lead us into one of those. It's in a similar vein of topic. We'll first go to Shuki on this. What resources would you recommend to train someone on the power of agents with AI? It's a lot, as Wade just mentioned, it's a lot for everyone to take in. Maybe everyone's not going to be building these agents. So Shuki, any tips or suggestions you might have?
Yeah, I will tell you what we decided here in the company in HealthEquity that I'm working for is AI going to be everywhere. We are letting every function in our organization to use AI in different shape or form. And AI can start with just basic stuff. Hey, I just want to get a summary from a team calls, or let's take this discussion, just how I get summary and just help me to get things faster or more productivity. To things that we are letting people in different functions just to go and write a custom agent. And I saw a question if no-code tool works. Yeah, this no-code tool beautiful for that. Because if you have a no-code tool that let you writing a prompt, define the goals for the agent, define the instruction, and have a 5-second way to integrate to any SharePoint or any information that you have in your environment, then you start to see the magic, because then the ideas are starting to come bottom up. And on the other side, you give them a tools like Copilot, Agent Builder, etc., that they can build in less than a day an agent. And the most exciting things is that in one day, they deploy it to the entire organization, okay? And then you start with a beautiful story. And the interesting things that we are seeing more and more agents building by different function and create this motivation. So for the one that asked the question, if you are working in a company, just make sure and ask, how can I build an agent? And how I can start to help for myself, so I can focus on things that are more strategic, things that are more bring value, and just keep things that are more automation to let that agent to do it. And you will find very quickly to build an agent, it's not a big deal, especially for such kind of function. If you are sitting outside of a function, you are in startup, you are engineering, whatever, it's the time for you to go and learn how to use a agentic framework. It doesn't matter if it's a GitHub Copilot agent or Coursera and Winter. There are so many great things. I'm after 25 years, I'm writing code, and I found that these tools amazing, not just by the speed that I'm getting things done, but also now I can have the privilege to go and learn new technology or new things that I was afraid to learn before, because the heavy lifting was very heavy. So I think this is another place that if you are outside from enterprise function, just go and use your own. And the last one, sometimes it's costly, because you need to start to pay for tokens, and you need to start to pay for environment. See that as your dollars that you're spending yourself. My 2 kids they're not kids, they are in college, and I make sure that all of them have every they have a GitHub Copilot agent that they can write code. They have the license for in our case is ChatGPT, etc. Just invest some. It's a penny. Just go and invest some pennies in your pocket, because this will create a very high value later on once you start to be a professional in that.
Yeah, it's some great points that you're sharing here, Shuki. And I think whether someone is technical or non-technical, they definitely can get started today with agents. I shared at the onset of the call today about Moltbots being one of the fastest tools to get over 60,000 stars on GitHub. I'll share the link here in the chat. It's now actually over 100,000 stars. So it is truly incredible with low code or no code what's possible to build AI agents. I know, Shuki, you shared your view. Wade, what's your take also on how people could start training or upskilling on working with agents?
Yeah. So a lot of the agents that I work with are about generating content, and so they, if you just use a single ChatGPT prompt, it can provide some pretty powerful information. So you can imagine creating an agent that goes out and does 30 Google searches based on a goal of a piece of content you're trying to create, scrapes all of those, brings them back, passes them to the LLM, summarizes that, and puts out a 20-page document that is more complete than I could have wrote in 2 days. I mean, in 2 weeks. That's the kind of agents you can write in a couple hours that can save 2 to 3 weeks in the first time they ran. Okay. Amazing stuff. So there's platforms. I see some questions here about some tools. One of the one that's really more developer centric as N8N. And that's pretty powerful, but you got to go out and get the APIs. And that's the thing, back to what Shuki was saying, is that the APIs, you got to pay for these tokens. So a lot of these tools, you got to set up APIs and relationships with all of these different LLMs. The other one is make.com. My favorite is mindstudio.ai. That one has all of the LLMs all in one place. You have a single wallet. They do not mark up the LLMs. And so you put, $20 in your wallet and you start building agents. And I have agents that cost me 3 cents to run. I have agents that cost me $3 or $4 to run because of how much stuff they're bringing and going up to the LLMs. And then, of course, having all the action blocks that can go out and grab emails, push stuff to Facebook or LinkedIn if you're in sales and marketing. I can write posts for LinkedIn based on complex content in 10 seconds and post it to LinkedIn. Just amazing content that can be generated. Now, of course, you want to edit it. And that's one thing. AI in the hands of an expert is a ninja sword. AI in the hands of a novice is dangerous. So always review the things that come back from AI until you've proved them out to this autonomous side we've been talking about, because the content is going to need to be edited. And when you bring expertise to the equation, that's the human in the loop. Whether you want to call it hallucination or just bad information, you need to review the stuff. Don't just assume it's all right. But I'm telling you right now, 80 to 85% of the stuff that comes back first pass, amazing stuff. And that's super, super powerful. So again, N8N, make.com, MindStudio. MindStudio is my favorite just because they bring all the video generation, image generation, LLMs, all of that are under one application platform. And then you just pay straight away to the tokens. So that's my idea. Just get started. Don't worry about failing. Get started and just start doing it. That's my push.
Yeah, I love all the tools and strategies that you're sharing with the audience, Wade. And something that I'd be remiss that I can't escape my mind, and this is similar to Dario's article a couple days ago, but I think you spoke a little bit on risks. And this question will be more towards Barry, but Dario's recent article on the adolescence of technology says we're going to get to a point pretty soon where someone with a high school degree, no biology degree, will be able to prompt a model and create a bioweapon. That's the level of intelligence that's becoming available in everyone's pocket as a personal assistant soon. And so this begs the question, if we're thinking for enterprise and customers, Barry, it'll be for you, but what unique risks do these agentic AI systems introduce, and how can organizations develop mitigation strategies to protect their systems and data?
Yeah, and it's to me, it's a super interesting question because there's so many facets to it, and it's very easy to kind of go down the Terminator or Matrix scenario, or going back even further than that. Wade, I'll be with you and age myself on some of these. But for me, there's two pieces to this. to this question. One is, as Wade pointed out, AI in the hands of a novice can be dangerous. So if we take agentic AI to an even near-term logical conclusion, call it 2 years from now, the agent can go from making suggestions to taking actions very quickly. And that turn of responsibility and accountability is very easy to make happen with this technology. And you might cross that line with providing feedback and giving over autonomy and not even realize that you've done that. And that introduces a whole new level of risk when you consider prompt injections, when you consider malicious agents and malicious code injections into these agents. You've now given all of your responsibility, or a large portion of your responsibility, for taking actions on data and workflow and process to a thinking system. And if that thinking system is hijacked in any way, you've now compromised yourself, and you may never know all of the actions that it's taken because it's acting organically and completely autonomously in ways that old worms and hydras of the past never could have accomplished. As highly sophisticated as those programs have been in the past, there's no comparison here. But even without that hijacking of the agent, if it makes an error, if it has a hallucination, and you've given over too much autonomy to it, you've now introduced risk that doesn't necessarily have to do with cybersecurity, but it can still be as detrimental. So how do you combat that part of it? Really, it does go back to that human in the loop component to it, and whether or not it is humans involved in the process or having logical observability points, having programmatic kill switches, limits, guardrails for, whether it's gated approvals or protections against tool misuse and data leakage and prompt injections and all of those things. Like, you have to think about that as you're building the system with those logical observability points in mind. And if you don't, and if you aren't intentional about how you implement it and how you implement the learning that it has the capability of doing, you will run the risk of crossing that line. The second part of this is a little bit more of the Matrix Terminator scenario, but it's honestly quite real. You have big tech companies and even some smaller ones that have been building agents that can build their own agents. Stop and think about that for a second. A piece of technology that can think, reason, and act without you, that also can now write its own programs that are under its control, subservient to it. It does not have to tell you that it has done this if you don't require it. Put that in the hands of somebody with malicious intent. You can write a program to go out, crawl for vulnerabilities in an organization, a government entity, critical infrastructure. When I look at cybersecurity of the past, you had passive protection systems like firewalls, processes in human physical security protocol, automated system monitoring, and pen testing and ethical hacking that was done on a manual basis. That in and of itself would fail in a scenario like that. You have an agent that can go out, search for your vulnerabilities. Once it encounters barriers, can write its own programs to overcome those barriers in real time. So the ability to keep up with that as humans alone becomes virtually impossible. Now, the fortunate thing is, on the flip side to this, we have the same capability on the cybersecurity side to build and implement agentic AI for cyber that brings together those physical security monitoring systems, the passive protection systems, the active system monitoring, and real-time 24/7 pen testing with the ability to code new defenses as threats are identified in real time. But it does escalate that risk and cybersecurity war yet again.
So, we've covered a lot of great topics so far throughout today's session on agentic AI. I'd like to now switch towards a future outlook on how we're seeing the movement in 2026 and beyond. This question will be for Shuki to start out with, but how are we starting to see agentic AI as a strategic partner? Are there places it's showing up? And let me share an example. In the chat, we have an article from Variety.com just this past week. An agentic AI startup, 11 Labs, co-produced a musical album with the great Liza Minnelli, using AI and her voice, right, to create art, to create music. We've seen this also with, other very fascinating startups like Suno and others. But it's beginning to beg the question, right? Can we start mastering multi-agent orchestration, governance, bringing the human and AI collaboration together to move beyond pilots into the decade ahead? Shuki, what's your take on some of this technology integration?
Yeah, you're totally right. I think, and we already see that in the beginning of this year that, David, it's funny because when we meet, like I think a week ago, you said to me, hey, I don't think we need to educate people what is agent. Because if people don't understand in the beginning of 2026 what is agent, it's a problem. So I agree with you. It's like everyone understands the value of an agent. It's not a big problem to understand. I think what we're going to see in 2026, and I already see that agents are starting to get more and more into a deep and more complex use cases that we haven't seen before. And it's less about that we are getting a better underlying technology like LLM. I think that the reason for that is that people are starting to realize how to augment an agent to a situation that protect, like guardrails. Guardrails, by the way, is one of the top words that everyone is talking now today with agents. And I recommend you to start to learn about. There's like 25 types of guardrails that can help you to take an agent to the next level. So this is one. Second, the pricing continue to go down. You can get things that cost 10 times more a few months ago. You can get it much cheaper. And the third one is optimization. We see a great solution, especially from the startup community, that's really spending hours of how to optimize stuff. We are using, without getting into names, several startups that are helping us, especially on the voice part. We have some agentic AI to support our customer service using a voice. We decided as a first agent AI for service to be a voice, and the quality and the optimization that they put in place, it's just phenomenal. So I think we will see more and more things like that. So I'm very, very optimistic for the coming year. We'll see more and more solutions. We'll see more and more practices that coming together. We will see that it's not anymore like people that try and innovate, but also things that we used to call it that applied innovation. Now we call it applied AI. Are you really taking agentic AI to the next level? So I think if you ask me, it's like get the shit done, like execution. Let's get things done, and I think this is what we're going to see more and more. And we start to see. I think Wade, you mentioned the Jacob chart. I believe this year we start to go up and start to see the business outcome that everyone is expecting to see.
That's great. And Shuki, for you, I know you work in specific targeted industries, but are there certain industries or segments that in your work you're seeing agentic AI moving fast first and trending?
Yeah, it's interesting. There is a great article that came from Gartner, I think July last year, and I've been in a conference last week with Microsoft, and over there they mentioned the same 4 areas that everyone are pushing now AI. One is everything, as I mentioned, to the customer service and customer support, because there's a heavy of things that you are not super complex that agentic AI can solve and help you to that. Of course, if you have more complex and you're looking for more human touch, like areas that we are doing, like health, etc., you still want this combination and life agent. But customer service is the number one that everyone is now pushing, and we see a greatest things. The second one is everything about applications, especially how you start to deploy agents to help you and change how the customer experience will looks like. We call it elevate the customer experience. We see very, very cool things. So I recommend to everyone to start to follow up and start to learn how the AI agent is shaping the entire customer experience. And the last one is everything about operations. How your IT organization is resolving better and faster issues, how your software developers are using tools like, as I mentioned, like Cursor to get and to handle output and get a much better productivity with the same amount of developers, and you name it. So from customer service to the front of how you elevate customer experience to how you start to augment operation and start to get more automation into that.
Excellent. And Wade, to you as well, I'll ask the same question. I know you work with different industries and segments, but are you seeing any specific industries or segments where the agentic AI is moving fast first and trending?
Well, I think, yes, HR has a lot of opportunities, finance always, sales and marketing, a lot of folks are asking for agents to do things faster. It's so hard to penetrate with all of our spam tools and all that stuff to actually get conversations with folks. Personalization with AI has been something that was in the last year, and really now people are expecting, if somebody's personalizing communication to me, they think it's already AI, these phone calls that are coming through and stuff. So I think one thing to think about is how we think about teams. Pretty soon, instead of talking about how many man hours or how many team members it's going to be in humans, we're going to look at how many people and how many agents. As long as we can categorize these agents and how productive they are, it'll be, I have X team members and Y agents to actually execute on an effort. I think that's one thing we'll start to think about in the recruiting, where it'll be really that man plus machine combination. And obviously, as the agents get better and better and more standardized, I think as these platforms become more and more available, we're going to start to see standardization around these action items, so that if I build an agent in Make, I can move it over to N8N, or I can move it to mine. And so just like we had standardization in web protocols and HTML and all that stuff, I think we're going to start to see standardization in how we describe agents and those functions so they can be cross-platform, because right now they are absolutely not. You have to recreate the agents when you move from one to the other. Now, AI can help you with that, obviously. And then I think, as we think about, routine coordination of efforts, how we hand off work, we'll hand off work to agents. It will bring back results. And we'll start to think about this interaction where certain tasks have been moved to the agents because and again, not that you've developed them yourselves, but they're available to the department. And so we'll think about these handoff relationships, much like we think about coordination between humans. It'll be coordination with humans, agents back to humans back to other agents, and it will become more collaborative until we can get full automation. And that's still a ways away, because I think we have less and less developers that can even do that kind of stuff. So it's going to take time for the full automation, but I'm very excited for the future, more excited than I was 30 years ago talking about HTML. So,
well, very bullish on all the insights that Wade, yourself, and Barry and Shuki have shared with the audience here today. I know I'll be remiss if say we covered all the topics in an hour. I think we have dozens and more questions from the audience, but for today, we'll have to call a wrap on how agentic AI is reshaping tech. I think hopefully everyone's taken some insights here on the different verticals, the use cases, and the implementation. And if any of the trends and notes we've shared with you just in the first month of 2026 is an indication for this year, there's a lot of tech implementation, and very grateful for Wade, Barry, and Shuki sharing your insights with everyone here today.
Great. Thank you all for attending, and a huge thank you to our panelists for your time and sharing so many great insights and wonderful resources in the chat. We'll try to do a roundup of those and share with all attendees following the event. Before you head out, we're going to share that community pulse survey one more time, so feel free to add any additional thoughts of event topics or industries you'd like for us to cover next. You'll see that on your screen, so feel free to provide any feedback there. And then finally, in the chat, you'll see we're hosting our next webinar on February 19th, and that will be more of a cybersecurity focused conversation on why identity is the new frontline and what you can do about it. So be sure to check that out, and we hope to see you very soon. Thank you all.